switching with Senator Jackson. File item 4, Senate Bill 1114. This is on commercial fishing, swordfish. It is dual referred to environmental quality.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. We're here to talk about what is indeed the most harmful fishing practice on the West Coast that we seek to phase out by transitioning California's swordfish industry away from damaging drift gill nets to a more sustainable deep set buoy gear. Now, because of the unavoidable impacts on marine wildlife, including whales and dolphins, sharks, pinnipeds, and sea turtles, large-scale drift gill nets have been banned by the United Nations for use on the high seas. They've been banned by every state on the East Coast. And here on the West Coast, Alaska and Washington, Oregon no longer issues permits. So California is literally the last state in the nation that issues permits for drift gill nets, and this has been banned on the high seas by the United Nations. The reason for all of this is that these drift gill nets have been found to be so damaging that they killed an estimated 16 endangered sperm whales over the last 10 years. They're also catching and endangering Pacific leatherback turtles, which is a highly endangered species. And just to put this into context, if one Pacific leatherback is killed in the next 5 years, the species simply may not recover from its current trajectory of extinction by 2030. We know that in addition, the drift gill nets are also catching megamouth sharks. It's a species that is so rare that fewer than 102 have ever been seen worldwide. So according to data collected by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's observation program, California drift gill nets kill or injure approximately 7 times more whales and dolphins than any other observed fisheries in California, Oregon, Washington, and Alaska combined. And almost 2/3 of what is caught by California's drift gill nets is bycatch and is discarded. So because of these concerns, the Pacific Fisheries Management Council is currently considering how to allow for the use of deep set buoy gear for swordfish fishing. This gear has been used on the East Coast and through grants from the Ocean Protection Council experimentally here in California, where it's been proven to be among the most sustainable methods to catch swordfish. Unlike drift gill nets, buoy gear boasts a 94% marketable catch rate, meaning that almost all of what is caught can be kept and sold. That is compared with the 2/3 bycatch associated with the drift gill nets. So a far less effective means of catching swordfish. So this bill, SB 1114, is a balanced approach to transition the fishery from damaging gill nets to this new, more sustainable technology while not putting anyone out of business or disrupting the fishery. The drift gill net, this bill allows anybody who's been actively fishing with drift gill nets since 2010 to continue to use their gear. And so anyone who's been fishing with their net 3 out of the last 5 years, so all of these fishermen will be grandfathered in. So this is a very important thing to repeat. The folks who have been using the drift gill nets now are, regularly are going to be grandfathered into this bill. All we're doing now is transitioning away from this damaging technology. So the bill prohibits Fish and Wildlife from issuing new permits and retires the 70 or so permits that have been issued, but which are not actively used. The bill also authorizes Fish and Wildlife to develop a limited entry permit system for deep set buoy gear after the Pacific Fisheries Management Council authorizes the gear, offering the new permit to those already in the swordfish industry. And as part of this new permit system, the bill asks Fish and Wildlife to develop an incentive program for the active permit holders grandfathered in to encourage them to retire their permits early. They wouldn't be required to do it, but the plan is to try to develop some sort of incentive program to encourage them to make that transition. And these fishermen would have the option to obtain 1 or 2 additional permits that can be sold or leased if they turn in their drift gill net permits. And after 5 years, then the department can issue more if there is a demand. So I believe that this is a very reasoned approach to moving away from these harmful drift gill nets that have, as I say, been banned by the United Nations and nearly every other state in the country, while recognizing that we need a gradual transition to the better gear that's being used effectively in other places. And I have with me here today Dr. Doug Karpa from the Turtle Island Restoration Network to support the bill and also help to answer any questions.
Your bill, just to clarify, because it's pointed out again in, on page 5 of the analysis, It doesn't relate, it relates to state waters. Or
That's right, that's exactly right.
I think because a lot of the opposition comments
That's exactly right.
are confused in that regards. So the federal law would have to,
Yeah, we don't even have, right, so we have no control over the federal.
I realize that, but sometimes the public does not.
Right,
And of course, fish don't realize that,
right, yes.
more importantly. Okay, let's hear from your witnesses.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, Senators. I'm actually incredibly privileged to speak in favor of this bill because it represents a well-crafted package that is the result of years of effort from scientists, fishermen, policymakers, environmentalists, the people of California to bring forward a new and innovative and sustainable and truly 21st century fishing method that I think we believe will represent actually a model worldwide for going after swordfish. And as you look at this, I think there are four really critical things to keep in mind about this bill. The first one is that it authorizes CDFW to issue permits for fishermen to go out and fish for swordfish. Without that authorization, if California does not step up, if this bill does not succeed, it is all but certain that federal authorities will step in and take over regulatory control over the fishery, which will have the impact of all but removing the voices of Californians from the further discussion of conservation of our marine wildlife. The second thing that's critical about this bill is that it does not put any existing established business out of business. It does not cost anyone any jobs, because the existing businesses that have generated even a modest revenue over the last 5-6 years are grandfathered in. And those fishermen, those businesses can fish until they retire. So, done. The third thing that this bill does, which is absolutely fundamentally important for moving forward to a really new and sustainable swordfish fishery that doesn't have these tremendous bycatch problems, is to incentivize the adoption of this new gear and to get a fleet out there that's working with the gear, innovating with the gear, making it happen. And so there are strong incentives for existing experienced fishermen to switch over to the new gear, and also provides for additional permits so that new entrants, young fishermen coming into the business, can join that fleet. And then finally, it directs the Ocean Protection Council to build on its incredibly strong work to get us to this point and leverage their expertise and resources to help find funding and support to buy new gear to get people up and running, for training, and for observers, which is critical for gathering the data to make sure that the bycatch characteristics really are that hold up, even though they've held up for years on the East Coast. We have 5 years of data on the West Coast that shows that this gear really does seem to work pretty well. So altogether, this is a well-thought-out compromise proposal that puts this fishery, which is to date struggling and dying, on a better path to revitalization. And that role model will help us then export a lot of these practices worldwide to places like Ecuador, Malaysia, or wherever. So there's also a global context. So I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you very much. And I do note that the bill does not affect the legality of existing drill gill net permits. Is that correct? All right. Other people in support?
Yeah, Eddie Moreno on behalf of Sierra Club California in support. This bill is very important to our 380,000 members and supporters. It's important for making this industry more sustainable. It's important for protecting some of the most majestic species on the planet. Thank you.
Oh, that's right. You could be the second witness if you wanted to be. Sorry.
Josh Hanthorne, Defenders of Wildlife, here in support of the bill.
Cassie Birdie Shaw, Advocacy and Policy Director for Turtle Island Restoration Network.
Good morning, Ashley Blako with Oceana in support. Thank you.
Amy Trainer with the California Coastal Protection Network. Thank you, in support.
All right, anyone else in support? Opposition to this measure, if you would come forward. 2 primary witnesses, and the others should have a real brief comment and name. Right.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Committee. bear with me, I'm not a professional speaker like most people here. I'm just a fisherman. So, you know,
Proudly, used to be proudly a fisherman, right?
I'm proud to represent my industry.
There's many months I wish I was fishing instead of,
Well, Turtle Island painted a pretty picture, but sometimes a portrait doesn't tell the truth.
go ahead.
My name is Gary Burke. I've been a drift net fisherman since it became a fishery. I'm also a member, a director of the Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara, and a part of the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. And I serve on the Highly Migratory Species Advisory Team, of which manages this fishery. Someone once said that the mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. I have a feeling a lot of you have already decided on this bill, but I hope not. This bill was written without any consultation with whom the bill directly affects, the fishermen. This bill's underlying purpose is not about buoy gear, but it's to get rid of the drift net fishery. I know most of you know very little about my fishery, so I'd like to take a few moments to inform you. It started in the late 70s and became a fishery in 1979. In 1982, it became one of the first limited fisheries with about 200 boats. In 1985, we limited the net length to 1 mile and a minimum mesh size of 14 inches to reduce bycatch. Also in 85, we've closed fishing within 25 miles of the coast from December 15th to January 31st, not to interfere with the gray whale migration. In 1989, we started observer coverage, one of the first of all the fisheries. In 1990, Prop 132 was enacted, which prohibits nets 3 miles off the coast, state waters. In 1995, the Take Reduction Team was formed, one of the first. This is a group of marine scientists, marine experts, fishermen, and conservationists. It was formed to tackle any foreseen problems in the fishery and to promote ideas to further reduce bycatch. In 1996, legislation was passed to restrict drift net fishing from May 1st till August 15th within 75 miles of the coast to protect thrasher sharks during their puppy season. Recreational fishermen still target it. In 1997, we expanded our buoy lines to 36 feet deep and added pingers. So these are sound devices put on our nets to further reduce marine mammal interaction. This resulted in a 50% reduction in marine mammal interaction. In 2001, the PLCA was enacted to protect interaction with the leatherback turtle. This closed a huge amount of area to sword fishing until November 15th, the beginning of storm season. By the way, only 16% of the leatherbacks ever even come to this coast, never in state waters. Somehow they named it our state marine reptile. They've got green turtles living, the only real turtle living on state waters down to San Diego. Politics. This fishery has made huge strides in reducing bycatch and is still looking for ways to improve. We only fish in federal waters most of the time 50 to 60 miles offshore. Management takes place under the rules of the Magnuson-Stevens Act, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and the Endangered Species Act through the Pacific Fisheries Management Council. Every few years, marine scientists take stock assessments of all the marine mammals and come up with a PBR, potential biological removal for each species. PBR is the number of animals that can be taken from the stock without jeopardizing its health. In almost all cases, this fishery is under 10% of what it's allowed, and in most cases are under 2%. This fishery deserves a gold star for how it's been managed, yet despite all the good things we've done, we've become the poster child by misled statistics, misled facts, and pictures that people like Turtle Island have posted from foreign countries, not even from our fishery. Well, let's look at how bad this fishery is. Last year, they observed, with 20% observer catch, 41 sets. We caught one short-beaked common dolphin. That was our marine mammal catch. The PBR for a dolphin, 3,500. That's what we're allowed to catch before it's a concern. The year before, we had 30% coverage. We had 4 dolphin, 3 sea lions, and 1 sea elephant. The PBR for sea lions is 9,200. And for sea elephants, it's 4,882. This is what the scientists say that you can take and not harm the stock. Last year, This all comes when all marine mammal stocks are steadily increasing. As you heard from Senator McGuire, there was over 60 whale entanglements reported last year in buoy gear alone. Sea lion populations are out of control. They're sinking boats and taking over marina docks everywhere. Over 2,000 washed up on LA beaches last year due to overpopulation. In the past, we've had some whale
I
entanglements.
need to just let you know the custom and practice is about 3 minutes of a presentation.
I'm almost wrapping up here.
But may I also?
This is my livelihood.
I know, and I want you to try to finish it, but what I'd like to suggest to you also, if this bill passes the committee, it goes to environmental quality. You want to make sure you turn that in so it's part of the record, not only for this committee, but we would have it ahead of time also in environmental quality. Because I think from your perspective, it's important to get that on the record, but I wanted to suggest to you that putting it in writing is really incredibly important too and valuable, and they would have it ahead of time to look at it in their analysis.
Thank you. Our biggest bycatch makes up the biggest percentage of what we catch, and most of it's returned alive as mola mola. One of the most abundant fish in the world. Last year, the observed catch was less than 1%, where the average catch of swordfish was 4.3. There's only 2 ways to catch swordfish efficiently and economically in this California coast: long lining or drift net. Gill net is by far the best within the 200-mile EEZ. Along with swordfish, we produce tunas, luvars, and opah, all important fish that will be lost if we're sunsetted. More important, it'll be filled by foreign fleets who have no regulations at all. Almost all fisheries are limited now, and a boat's worth is only dependent on the permit it comes with. If I can't transfer my permit and it becomes worthless, what becomes of all my investment? I've got 2 sons who both fish with me, along with my crew member who's been here for 15 years. What's their future going to be like? Buoy gear is not a replacement for drift net fishery and never was intended to buoy. A buoy gear fisherman is going to go broke. I work with a guy who runs the EFP all the time. They talk to us, and he even will say that at this configuration, it's not economical. This year, due to uncontrollable water conditions, El Nino, domoic acid, California fisheries have suffered. There's been little squid, little salmon predicted, and a Dungeness crab closure. Here's a fishery that's doing everything right, harvesting from an unutilized stock, and this bill wants to get rid of it. It's just crazy. We need more support from legislation, not bills like this that are based on votes, not science. Please do not support this bill.
Right. Next.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jonathan Gonzalez. I'm here from Santa Barbara, California. I'm not a fisherman. I'm actually an artist at a skateboard company. But my interest in the drift gill net fishery began as I was a volunteer at the Santa Barbara Marine Mammal Center, where I served as the assistant director from 2007 to 2012. I used to be very much against drift gill nets. I even had a website dedicated to banning them until I learned the science behind this fishery. Now I'm actually the president of the Ventura County Commercial Fishermen's Association. I'm here today to strongly oppose SB 1114 and also to hopefully prevent you from buying into the same misinformation that I was once fell victim to about the drift gill net fishery. California drift gill nets are not walls of death. In fact, due to the responsible management from the Pacific Offshore Cetacean Take Reduction Team, it's actually become a very selective gear. In the last 10 years, there's only been 3 turtle interactions, and all 3 were recorded as being released alive. In the last 10 years, there's only been 6 whale interactions, and 2 of those were released alive. The last leatherback mortality in the fishery observed was 19 years ago. In comparison, vessel strikes are responsible for 39 whale deaths in just a 4-year period from 2008 to 2012. The U.S. consumes more swordfish than any other country in the world, and unfortunately, we only produce 23% of that domestically. The rest we import from other countries that don't have the same responsible fisheries management as we do. There was a natural experiment that happened one time when they shut down the Hawaiian longline fishery for swordfish. And during those 4 years, the other foreign nations seized a market opportunity and they fished for swordfish harder. And scientists estimate that during those 4 years that an additional 3,000 sea turtles were caught overseas. This is called the transfer effect. It's when we try to protect a certain species here, well, in other countries, it's not happening. As an avid environmentalist, I honestly believe SB 1114 will cause more harm than good. For that reason and many others, I respectfully ask for your nay vote. Thank you.
Thank you for your attendance. So for others, your name and affiliation, one sentence, that's it. All right? Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Mike McCorkle. I'm a commercial seafood harvester from Santa Barbara, California. I am here today on behalf of Commercial Fishermen of Santa Barbara, which is a multi-species group. We fish for all the species that are in California almost. I would like to qualify myself by now saying that I have been a boat owner for 62 years. I've been a fisherman before that. As a young kid, as 12 years old, I started in the commercial fishing business. Myself and Tony West started the drift gillnet swordfish fishery over 40 years ago. From what it was then to what it is now is a completely different picture. We've been worked over the period of time with the National Marine Fisheries Service, with the Fish and Wildlife Service.
I would like you to just end those comments with that sentence, please. We have, I'm sorry, that wasn't explained to you. We do 3 minutes each on the primary for or against, and then others lend their name and affiliation. But if this bill passes into the other committee, you may want to get things in writing and make sure we're aware of all your concerns.
I wanted to talk about, after I qualified myself as a person that I feel knows the fishery, knows what's going on, have been involved, is the crisis industry.
All right.
You all know about it.
Yep.
When you get a job with them, the first thing they teach you is to be a master of deception. That's to take a fact, a figure, and twist it around to make people think the way they want. That's what's happened in this case. In my years of fishing, I watched it come from nowhere up to what it is today. Cost me 120% of my fishing area.
I want to thank you for your comments, and Senator Allen, I know, is paying close attention, and this is not the end of the discussion of the first two hearings. It's how we operate. We don't have unlimited testimony.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, but I can't hear.
Oh.
I'm about 75% deaf because one of my hearing aids I lost
All right.
out at sea.
I want to thank you for your testimony, and we're going to go on to the next, because we've had your two primary witnesses. Thank you. Next person.
I'll finalize with what I said. Is that all right? Okay.
You're not.
Rob Ross, representing the California Fisheries and Seafood Institute, opposed to the bill.
Thank you.
Andrew Rasmussen, a commercial fisherman from Santa Barbara, a member of the Santa Barbara Commercial Fishing Association. I just wanted to make a point that I've been in this fishery 35 years, and I've used the permit probably 25 of those. The last 3 years, I have medical issues, 2 surgeries. I was unable to fish, so now I'm out. So people that say that I am not allowed, that all active fishermen are going to be allowed in, that's a lie. Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Tim Mulcahy, Santa Barbara, California. Opposed to the bill, and please don't kill my job. Thank you.
Josh DeGama. I'm a commercial fisherman for the last 8 years. I'm the captain of the Tommy John. I am a new permit holder. If this bill passes, I will lose my permit, lose my boat, lose everything I've worked for. Thank you very much.
My name is Fred Hepp, commercial swordfish, 50 years. This year is my 50th year fishing swordfish, and this bill would eliminate me from sword fishing. Thank you.
Okay. Want to excuse the witnesses on both sides unless there's questions from anyone here to any of the witnesses. Otherwise, I'm going to excuse them. Senator Jackson, you have questions for witnesses?
Obviously, these are my fishermen. Host.
I noticed the Santa Barbara theme.
Yes, there was definitely. But they are, I will tell you, the most environmentally responsible fishermen I know. And I always take their concerns very seriously, and really want to do right by them because they do right by the ocean. They are people who really respect the work they do. They respect Mother Nature, and it's very difficult to try to identify what the crux of the issue is. Obviously, there's very emotional feeling. These people are, I know Mike has been a fisherman for 50, 60 years, and so have many of the folks here who are here today. So what I'd like to do, because I'm compelled by both the concerns that are articulated about continuing to use gillnet fishing, the data that's been presented is of great concern. The notion that deep set buoy gear is the way to go runs sort of contrary to what the fishermen here are saying. And also saying that the work that they've done has not resulted in these dramatic losses of and bycatch and so forth that are unintended and dangerous to the rest of the fishing stock. So I have a few questions, and you know, I'd like to, because we're getting one story and exactly an opposite story. So what I'd like to do is ask, if I may, Madam Chair, both sides to talk a little bit about what is the economic viability of using the deep set buoy gear. Is it ready for prime time? Because the fishermen say no, and I suspect your position is yes. So would you tell me what documentation there is that demonstrates that that it is ready for prime time, that it is a more effective way, given the testimony we've heard that it is a better approach here on our West Coast?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the discussion, I mean, with all due respect, I think the characterization that this is an environmentally friendly fishery is somewhat wide of the mark. I mean, there's been a long litany of the first take reduction team, all sorts of ESA issues, all those regulations coming into effect precisely because it is the most severe impact, and it has been identified as such for
well, I don't want you to disparage my folks.
Well, that's just, those are the facts from, so there are two sources of data.
That's not helpful.
Yeah, you're not helping yourself, sir.
Okay. There are two sources of data I would direct you to look at. One is the observer data. There are observers on the boats that record every fish that's caught from a subset of sets. That data shows that the swordfish catch averaged over the last 5 years from the National Marine Fisheries Service is 1.7 swordfish per set. That's somebody on the boat looking at the fish. Not 4, not 3, 1.7. So that's the first fact, and I can direct you to the NMFS website that has that data. The second component is actually from the landing tags by California Department of Fish and Wildlife, which just reported earlier this year in March that deep set, oh, actually I should back up. So the corresponding number to that 1.7 from deep set buoy gear is 1.5. So it is slightly less. However, the sales price is much higher. And so this is based on 4 years of data. And I'll point out that the CDFW reports that the per pound ex-vessel price for drift gill net fish is $2.80, give or take. It varies, obviously. For harpoon caught, which is what the deep set buoy gear is more analogous to, that can be up to $8 a pound. So a slight reduction in catch under the current configuration without any innovation, but a higher price. And that's been...
You should explain why it's a higher price, because it has to do with the fish staying in underwater.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, of course, because it's actively tended gear, it's more analogous to the fish is fresher. Also, it can fish out of season. So that if you have drift gill net boats going out catching a ton of fish and you brine them all at the same time, the price is going to go down. If you can spread that out because you're not fishing within that window, that also will help boost your price.
So if I may, Madam Chair, ask the fishermen to respond to that. I mean, those are nice statistics, but do those apply to the California coast?
Sure, I'd like to respond here. A couple things. Out of season, there hasn't been a season even decided yet. The council's been working on this. Chugi Sepulveda, who is the AFP recipient who started in 2010, he's over the years, it's 0.6 to 1.7. This is a group of fishermen that are working together. They call me all the time, Gary, where do you think we ought to go set? And when they catch something, they all jump on the spot. And that's not the way a fishery is eventually going to work. The best conditions, and he's caught between 1/2 a fish to 1 1/2. The other thing about higher money for the fish, harpoon, yeah, there's only a couple of them. That's why it's higher, and it is. We're actively tended on the net, too. We catch fish that are only a day old. The point being this, we're trying to produce something for the average person. We're not trying to make a fish that only rich people can afford. We catch all the extra stuff, the bycatch stuff like tunas and luvars. That's become an important part of us. It comes at a season when we need to produce fish. We're farmers. We're not trying to make something elite just for some rich person to afford. So as it is now, Chugi even tells you, right now, this year in this configuration, you can't make money. But he's working on a 5-mile one. And that's what he says. There's a chance for that, maybe. But that's down the line. And I don't even know down the line if they'll allow that, because they catch sea elephants. And if you put the first hook up too high, you get bycatch too. And so they've been kind of eliminating that to make it look a little better. But this gear really isn't efficient.
Senator Jackson, do you have a follow-up? I was trying to understand. I get the emotions here. That's everything.
I have a quick follow-up.
Is it too costly? Is it, you said not ready for prime time? Could it be done, or it just doesn't?
Right.
Is that what you were trying to get?
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense, what I hear is that we have some nice abstraction over here, data that may have implications nationally, including on the East Coast. I'm interested here what we're doing in California and what the impacts are here, because that's what we're trying to deal with, is what's California legislation. And so when we talk about these, the gill nets versus the buoy, let's focus on California. What does the data show?
These are California numbers. These are the ones that, the
All
1.5.
right, so 1.5 versus, or 1.7 versus 1.5, which I have to admit, I'm not totally clear on what those numbers reflect. So if I could ask, I'm just going to ask this one more question.
Yeah.
If you would explain, the question really is, we're asking fishermen to move from a traditional system, which I hear the fishermen saying they have been very, very successful at avoiding bycatch of mammals that are of concern, and that the buoyed approach, the deep set buoy gear approach, is not quite there yet. And so to have to move to something that hasn't been proven from something that is, but is working in an environmentally sustainable way, is not where the fishermen think we should be going. So would you respond to that, and then I'll defer to other questions.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Hannah Beth. In the last fishing season and for the deep set buoy gear in the experimental trial, there was 138 fishing days, and out of those 138 fishing days, they caught 142 swordfish. In comparison, Josh, who just testified, he was a crewman on a boat that actually caught 175 swordfish in one trip. One trip, they caught more fish than was caught all year on this deep set buoy gear, and that really underlines the point that the senior scientist behind the buoy gear has been saying. This gear was meant to augment the harpoon fishery. It wasn't ever meant to replace the net. And it's just supposed to be a way for the fishermen to make a little bit of extra money in the summer, to land some swordfish in the summer when they wouldn't be gill netting. And so it came from the council actually wanted to look into this process of this experimental fishing permit to try to increase the domestic production of swordfish, since we only produce 23% of the swordfish that we consume in this country domestically. So,
thank you.